Brave New World is one of the most famous dystopian novels of all time, but the author, Aldous Huxley, actually wrote a utopia.
It's his last book, published a year before he died, and in some ways, it's more of a philosophical treatise in the structure of a novel.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Eric.
And this is In Other Works. So, as you said, the book doesn't really have much of a plot.
No.
There is, however, some plot.
For sure.
So it starts with Will Farnaby, a journalist who's this shill for an oil tycoon, crash landing on an island known as Pala while sailing.
Yeah, and it's actually a pretty interesting start. We find out later on that he has just left his wife, and after he told her he was leaving, she went and drove in a car and died in a car accident, and he's dealing with guilt of that. When we meet him, he's sort of coming to on the island after having injured himself, and he keeps hearing the word attention repeated over and over again. Attention. In the meantime, he's remembering the death of his wife. At first, he thinks maybe she's still alive because he's all confused from his injuries. And then we eventually start to get introduced to other characters and find out what the situation is.
He's helped by a little girl named Mary Sargini.
And her little brother as well.
Yeah. They explain to him that the attention is... And also, here and now, boys, it's also what he keeps hearing, is from a bird.
Yeah, there are mynah birds all over the island, and they've been trained to say those words to help people to remember, keep their attention focused, and to stay in the here and now, which is like...
really dumb.
It's kind of like a Buddhist kind of philosophy, which we eventually find out that the
island is very Buddhist.
But I feel like I don't know enough about Buddhism. Like, I think this is a type of Buddhism that isn't so much focused on nirvana. It's about using the practices of Buddhism to better your actual life in the moment rather than focusing on achieving nirvana. We're getting off course from the plot already because, as we said, there isn't much of one.
Yeah.
Very quickly, Will gets taken to the hospital where he starts to recover, and he meets a young man who is going to be the Raj, basically the constitutional monarch of the island.
Which, weird for a utopia to have a monarchy.
Yeah, but I guess the form of government was a monarchy, and the monarch, one of the Raja's... I think his grandfather, he's the one who decided to set it up as a utopia. So, if you're a monarch, you get to do that.
So this heir, Murugan, he didn't really actually grow up in Pala.
Yeah, his father was the Raj, but his mother is from, I guess, India. And so she's not comfortable with the culture of Pala. So at a certain point, she took him away to be educated.
He went all over the world, France and stuff.
Yeah.
And he's developed a very different view of the world that's very much against the culture. And so even though he's about to come in power to this island, that's not going to be good for the island.
Yeah. So one of the neighboring islands to Pala is a dictatorship. Mm-hmm. And we find out that the main character, Will, actually met the Raj over on that island when he was interviewing the dictator, and he had assumed that the Raj Murugan was like this dictator's boy toy kind of thing, and he may actually be right about that he has a relationship with the dictator, but he definitely admires this dictator and thinks the way he's running his country is fantastic, and that his own country is just backwards and not up to snuff.
I think one of the big key things that he really hates is that Pala is a very sexual freedom based island.
Yes.
And he is very much he finds the act of sex just disgusting.
Well, I wonder if it's because he's confusing he's confused about his own sexuality. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that everybody on Pala is so comfortable with theirs makes him sort of resent them, and if that's where that feeling comes from. Plus his own mother is also influencing him because she is opposed to to the culture of Pala as well. Eventually, Will speaks to the Raj's mother, who he has an instant dislike for. She has this idea in her head that she is some sort of like religious figurehead, that she's like going to bring peace to the world and all this stuff. And it seems like that belief in her is real, but she seems to just be using that as a source for power. So Will does not like her, but he starts negotiating with her on behalf of his employer, who runs an oil company, for them to make a deal to start extracting oil resources from Pala.
Yeah.
And the people of Pala have been opposed to this forever. They know that they have oil resources, but they have no interest in extracting them and bringing in foreign investors and all that kind of stuff, because they want to keep their island isolated and just for their own culture. But the new Raj and his mother have different ideas, and they already start a negotiation with Will on behalf of the oil company, that they'll give them a generous cut of the oil revenues, and they're all for it. So,
and then the rest of the book basically just follows Will as he explores the island, learns about the culture, and realizes, damn, I should not have sold out these people like that.
Yeah, exactly.
There we go. That's the entire book. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Yeah, if we're just talking about the plot, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, stay tuned for part 2.
but yeah, there is definitely more to talk about. Like, we should say that the reason this is all stuff that's going to happen in the future is the Raj has not come of age yet, so he isn't actually ruling the country yet. There are people doing it on his behalf, but he's about to become of age and keeps talking about his plans to change the country. And weirdly, like, everybody knows that, don't want to do any of the things that he plans to do, but they're pacifists and they don't have an army and they have no plan for how to deal with what he's about to do. They're just like, yep, we're going to go ahead. We're going to keep living our lives and cross our fingers that he changes his mind. But in the meantime, this is it.
Which really makes you wonder, Huxley's idea of a utopia is one that doesn't have a plan to survive.
It's like, I'm going to show you utopia and it'll be amazing, but completely unsustainable. You said before, they have a pretty sexually open society. It's different from
Brave New World.
Brave New World, where like promiscuity is encouraged and monogamy is discouraged, and like those attachments are discouraged. Attachments are like, basically, they want you to find attachments in this society. They want you to make commitments with other people. There's no insistence that you live a certain way, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you could happily have a monogamous relationship on Pala. You could probably have a bigamist or whatever relationship, as long as you're open about it and you're making your commitments.
Yeah. And then I think one of the big things, though, is also that, like, the book, the society in the book really takes the phrase, it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah. The idea is that when you're a parent, the biological parents are not the only parents to the children, that you have sort of like an adoptive group, where
a whole network
of people who are responsible for the children within that group. So if a child is having like a difficult time with their actual birth parents, they can go ship off and hang out with some other parents for a little while, have a break from their parents and be taken care of by other people, which I think is kind of an interesting idea. Like, I don't know how you would do that in a modern society, but it's certainly one of the ideas that I think probably has some merit in this book.
There's also a lot about its educational system, which is, I don't know how, it's weird.
It feels like Huxley had some ideas about education and he puts them down here, and I don't know that there's any rigor behind it in terms of it actually being a better way to educate than the way we do it now.
It's basically designed with the intent that you work and go to university at the same time, but you'd start at a younger age and it'd last longer, so you get all of the education you need while also developing work experience to set you up for working in that. Will meet some like nurse people that are like nurses that are like at the same time still in school.
But there's also sort of different ways of teaching where they don't, if they're going to teach you math, they are going to put it in a practical setting for you, so that you're not just like, oh, you have to learn this by rote. No, it's like you have to learn this. This is why you need to learn this. Is how you can apply it. The main nurse that he meets was like she previously had nursed the like diplomat from this other dictator island and really does not like that guy. Like he probably got handsy with her or something. We know that she's part of the reason that the Raj ended up leaving and going to another island, because she was sort of enamored with him and tried to make advances on him, and that intimidated him and started the whole process of him feeling uncomfortable and his mother getting him out of there. And part of his disgust with the Raj's mother is that he feels like she raised her son to become the plaything of another dictator, right? And it kind of, I read that as a sexual plaything.
Now let me ask you, do you think this is a sense that Huxley was homophobic or not?
No, I don't at all think it was like, I think he was anti-pedophilia, which I think is how he kind of describes that relationship, because the Raj is so young. But I don't think he's anti-homosexuality.
So you're basically saying Huxley is based.
Yeah. If I know my slag, and I don't, Huxley is based.
Yeah. Well, you heard it from Eric, folks. Aldous Huxley, based. One thing, though, that actually like really stuck with me was this whole thing about knowing things without having a word to describe them. You know, that whole like meditative part. This weird sort of idea that I guess words can, which is funny because a book is a collection of words, but that like words in themselves can be a prison, that they can cage thoughts because like that like define things into specific things. Like when we both describe feeling happy or whatever, that could be a completely different feeling we're describing, even though, you know, we both mean a general sense of the same thing. Or like, I'm sure you've heard the common thing, you know, because we both see, like, for example, my shirt here is blue, you know, do we see the same blue? And that sort of thing. And the book does a really great description of like exploring that. Just because we use words to mean like a general idea of the same thing, we actually can't mentally comprehend if it is really the same thing.
You've actually reminded me of another aspect of the plot we haven't talked about, which is there's a point where the Raj's mother tells Will that the people on the island are all drug addicts and they get their children addicted to drugs early, and Will's like shocked to hear this because this isn't the impression he gets. And then when he confronts the doctor about it, and the doctor explains this idea, they have this moksha medicine, which is a hallucinogen, and it basically guides them. It makes having these philosophical, like Buddhist kind of meditative states much easier to achieve. The Raj and his mother think that the moksha medicine is a shortcut to enlightenment and not proper enlightenment, and so they describe it as drug addiction, which it becomes clear it isn't. It's not something that the people in the book use constantly or even frequently, but they use it occasionally as a guide to help them with to gain insights into themselves and that sort of thing.
And so there becomes a point where Will starts tripping balls.
Yeah, he eventually decides that he wants to give that moksha medicine a try himself, and so he does. And yeah, he, as you said, he goes on quite a trip. He kind of confronts his guilt about the death of his wife, confronts like the way he was raised, and also just has some crazy hallucinations.
He's doing it with like a woman that...
Cecilia. So she was a woman whose husband had recently died in a rock climbing accident.
And while he does the drugs, Cecilia's with him, and he has this whole thought process where he's like, I don't even want to sleep with you. Actually, that's not true. I do want to sleep with you, but I'm completely okay with it. I can love you forever.
Yeah. Yeah, that was... I like that. He very quickly went from... Oh yeah, actually I do. But But we don't ever get to that point. He has like these sort of like very self-centered, I think probably normally, I've never done hallucinogens, so I can't say, but probably
I've done shrooms.
Yeah,
but I don't feel like this describes at all what a shroom trip was like.
I'm sure it's pretty different.
Yeah,
but I feel like focusing on yourself would not surprise me when you're hallucinating, and she keeps trying to sort of steer him away from just focusing on himself, and to make it more of a learning process than like a self-obsession process.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll spoil exactly how the book ends, but pretty quickly after his drug trip, the book comes to a close.
Yeah. What do you think of Will?
I think his trajectory was predictable from
the get-go.
Yeah. But I still enjoyed it. I have to say, like, the way we're talking about this book and how little plot there is and how it is just like, a suit to put on your philosophy makes it sound like I don't think much of the book, but I really enjoyed this book. I would say
I prefer it to Brave New World.
I would say like as a like
there isn't much narratively, but it's so philosophically deep. I don't even agree with like most of the stuff Huxley's saying, but he always puts it in such an interesting way that like I'm constantly invested in where the book is going with its ideas and exploring what his philosophy is on everything.
I have to say, so for me, like, I'm going to talk about Brave New World a bit. I like the world that he built for Brave New World. I don't like what he did with it. I don't get anything out of the actual narrative of Brave New World.
That's true. The characters are so lame in Brave New World. Like, they are some of the most uninteresting characters. It's like the world is more important. The same thing's true of Island. The world is more important than the characters. But it's in a way in Brave New World where it relies too much on the characters and they're not at all likable.
Yeah.
And they're not at all
They're not unlikable in an interesting way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm just like...
And I feel like...
I straight up... this is a hot take. I straight up don't really like Brave New World. I think it's kind of mid.
Yeah, I think as a dystopia, I think it's got more points to it than I think you do. As a narrative, I think it's eh. Yeah. And again, this one is not great as a narrative, but I think it, without telling much of a story, it does a better job of exploring who these characters are.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I was trying to say. Even if, like, the characters are, like, there isn't necessarily much to some of the characters, but a lot of the Islanders, even though Raj, even though he's not supposed to be likable, there's a certain charm to all of the characters in this book, and there's none of that charm in Brave New World, which I know is probably part of the point of Brave New World, but...
it makes it hard to read.
Yeah. With that out of the way, I think we are done for part one.
We just have to rate Island.
Yep.
And we're gonna rate Island on a scale of epsilon to alpha.
We are? Oh, I didn't hear anything about this. Honestly, no. I disagree with you. I think that's a classist way of rating this book, and we do not support classist ideologies.
Okay, so if you have an silly idea that you can pull from Brave New World that's better than epsilon to alpha, give it to me now.
I'll just give it a beta plus.
That's my ranking too, beta plus.
All right, well, thanks for watching. Make sure to stay tuned for part two, where we can't really do a spoiler discussion because what is there to spoil? Where instead we're just going to actually go more into detail on the philosophy itself and just like sort of break it down.
Yeah, and so that video will be out in a couple weeks. We look forward to you coming back to watch it.
Like, comment, subscribe, all of those things YouTubers tell you to do.
Yep, and come back in a couple weeks to watch part two.
Bye-bye.